issues here. Y'all ready? The camera's on. Yeah. We'll go ahead and call the meeting Utilities Committee for July 31st to order. Roll call, Madam Secretary. Everybody's here so far with the exception of Councilman Turner. Invocation and pledge. If everyone please rise. Mr. Randy Kluwat will lead us in that.
In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, we ask that you look over the citizens of Ascension Parish as we move into the heat of the hurricane season. We ask that everyone be prepared. And once more, please look to the ones next to you, those that don't have much. Let's look to the elderly. Let's try to take care of the folks around us. Lord, on a somber note, we ask a special prayer for the Bitter family, for the loss of Officer Sam Bitter, one of the great citizens of the parish. We also ask that you look over the Bro family, for Mr. Calvin Bro, and take care of his health, and also the Tomplay family, for Mr. Lucian Tomplay, that he gets better. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Chair's additions, we have none tonight. We do have a request to move items 8 and 9 up to the front of the line to help out with some guests that we
Make
have.
that motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Kluwat to move 8 and 9 up to the list. Second by Councilman Joseph. Any discussion? Any opposition? That motion passes. We'll move 8 and 9 up above the number 5 there. We'll turn them into 4 and 5. Okay. Public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item can sign in with the secretary, and they'll be given 3 minutes when that item comes up on the agenda. Since we moved items 8 and 9 up, starting with item 8, we have 2 speakers. Mr. Paul DeSherry, you can come forward, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Paul DeSherry. I'm an attorney with Taylor Porter, and I have worked on behalf of Ascension Wastewater Treatment for a number of years. In fact, I had the honor of working with AWT as they responded to the various enforcements by the Department of Environmental Quality. I'm not here to tell you that they never had any problems, but over the last 3 years, they have worked actively pursuant to a very detailed improvements program that was negotiated with the Department of Environmental Quality. I can say here this evening that they have met every obligation of improvement imposed by that order. They do have a request pending with the Public Service Commission for additional rates based upon additional improvements that the company believes are necessary in the forthcoming years. Part of that is dictated by changing regulations that require better treatment for waters that receive wastewater effluent in the Manchac watershed. They also are asking for authority to expend monies to provide additional safeguards in case of emergencies, such as emergency generators to keep the systems working in cases of hurricane and power loss. I don't need to take the full 3 minutes. I just thank you for your attendance to these issues here on behalf of Ascension Wastewater, and if you all have questions, we will try to answer those. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Rob Rieger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, Rob Rieger, Adams and Reese. We represent Ascension Wastewater Treatment. I appeared at the council meeting. I'll remember that several weeks ago. I'm just here to reiterate everything I said at that time. Mr. DeSherry has the more particular expertise in the environmental issues that you all are probably interested in, and so I will defer the rest of my time to whomever, and let's just move from there, if you will. Mr. Chair, if that will work.
You got 3 minutes. If you want to use it or if you want to give it to somebody else, that's fine.
I would, if it would be appropriate, I'd like to hear some of the discussion on that and address it afterwards, if that's appropriate.
No, sir, it's not.
Okay. Well, in that case, I've said what I need to say, and we'll just see where we go.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All righty. Moving on, DEQ review of wastewater providers compliance. We're pleased to have Ms. Cheryl Nolan with DEQ here tonight, and Ms. Cheryl was asked to come to the meeting to give us an update. There was some questions from the council meeting in regards to the wastewater providers in the parish, and we asked her to come here and kind of give us a general overview of where we are as far as compliance with the different companies we have in the parish. Ms. Cheryl, thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Any particular order you want to go in, or which ones are y'all interested in? As I told you, I didn't really prepare anything for you.
Basically, you know, the big ones that we have right now that's causing some concern, if you will, of course, is the density, of course, which is going on with there. And then we also have the MODAD and AWT, as they just mentioned, are going up to the Public Service Commission for some rate increases. And if there's anything else that's out there that's kind of any big issues with other companies that are out there that we need to know about, we'd appreciate that too.
Okay, I'll start with the density. Density, as we understand, there was a hearing just last week. We haven't seen the documents yet, but we think that the transfer went through to Utilities, Inc. We have been working with them to put them under an order and a schedule. When that's final, we'll have a new owner and we can move forward with that. The Attorney General's office has pretty much been the lead for the state in working through those bankruptcy issues because it crosses a number of agencies. So they've been the lead with respect to the bankruptcy proceedings in Georgia. We weren't able to get the venue changed to Louisiana, so we had to work through the bankruptcy courts in Georgia. One of the other companies you didn't mention is Tessie. Tessie has a small number of facilities here in Ascension Parish. They do have some sporadic violations. They are under a consent decree with EPA, and they also have a schedule. I understand that they are pursuing a modification with EPA and Department of Justice. We are a party to that. I think that there was a schedule proposed that was rejected, and they're working on an alternate schedule. MODAD. We have some significant noncompliance issues with them. I understand that we have an additional enforcement in process for them, and we are looking at escalating the existing enforcement that we do have against them, and we will proceed accordingly with that. AWT, we did have a large global order for them. From what we understand, we've done some spot checking and some inspections. They are significantly in compliance. No one is 100%. They do have some isolated things in the short term that we looked at. They do have a significant history, as you mentioned earlier. We are guardedly optimistic. What we're looking for is sustaining that compliance. So we're happy with the work that's been done, and I acknowledge that a significant amount of work has been done, but we want to see that sustained across time. You know, right now we have a fairly small window to look at with respect to compliance over the history of it. So we're looking at seeing that extend forward. We do have a couple of other facilities that we know had more problems that we have under separate orders. They either have a schedule or have a schedule under review that we would incorporate into another order. But that's pretty much the 30,000-foot view there.
Mr. Claude?
Thank you, Chair. Quick note, just going through the four that you mentioned, is anybody in compliant right now operating in Ascension Parish?
Okay. Define what you mean by
Okay.
compliance. I mean, significantly, everybody has an isolated thing.
Yeah.
So what we look at, are you significantly in compliance? If you have one or two effluent violations a year and we don't see repeats and you take steps to correct that,
Right.
then that's significantly compliance, and we're happy with that. We have some that are in much better shape. Like I said, significant compliance has been achieved at some of the ones that we looked at for AWT. Some of the others are in better shape, but there are some that are significantly out of compliance.
Okay.
You know, when you look at a company, because they have a number of facilities, you may have, say they have 5. 4 of them may be significantly in compliance, but they may have 1. So I can't say the company is in
Okay.
compliance because of that. But they have some facilities that are significantly in
So in
compliance.
other words,
and some facilities owned by the same company that are having problems.
Yeah. So it goes facility by facility.
We look at facility by facility,
It
and then we
doesn't
look at the
necessarily
whole.
go by the company.
Right. So some plants, some facilities are significant compliance, some are not.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. President?
Cheryl, if you would take us through, if Tommy's wastewater was out of compliance, okay, and we had some significant violations, and DEQ came to us and started with
So the
EPA.
enforcement process?
Yes,
Okay, I'll-
enforcement. What happens? How long do I have? And I think that's significant here when we start talking about.
There
these
is no
things.
set time. I'll kind of walk you through the enforcement process. You get a permit, you have a new facility, you get a permit, you submit discharge monitoring reports that we look at, and you're subject to routine inspection. If we have a complaint, we'll go out there and inspect your facility and see what's going on. If we go out and inspect due to a complaint or a routine inspection, or if you're not submitting DMRs, you may get a warning letter. We try to start informally. If you have an inspection, it's a few minor things, we may try to handle it through what we call a notice of deficiency that allows the company to come in and fix the problem and get it corrected and not get it sent to enforcement, because the inspections people and the enforcement people are two different groups. If you don't correct the issue and you see sustained compliance, then we will do an enforcement action. And that enforcement action will tell you, you need to fix your problems. It may require you to report what you've done and what you're going to do to fix that problem. If you fix it and it's all as well, then that's where it ends. If it doesn't, we escalate through a number of different factors. We may take it up to a notice of potential penalty. You know, we may penalize you. We may put you under a schedule. There are a number of different things we can do. If you don't comply and you don't appeal, we could make it executory, which means we take it to the courts and petitions the court to make it an action of the court. So where it's, if they don't comply, it's contempt. And we have used that mechanism in the past. So there are a number of different ways that we can use to try to bring people into compliance.
So,
And we try to work with, you know, ultimately, we want people in compliance, because that affects water quality. So we try to work with companies and municipalities to try to work towards those solutions.
right. And that's basically the same thing we do. I mean, it's,
Right.
you don't want to bring the hammer out right off the bat.
Right. And the timeframe is going to vary depending on the situation and the severity of the problem.
So, we didn't give you a whole lot of information, understand that, so if you don't have all the answers to this, that's fine.
Okay.
As far as Tessie, about how many systems do they have in the parish? Do you know, Ralph, around?
I
In a
think
rough
I have-
ballpark is
I
fine.
think I have a list here of them. Let me see. They have 7 or 8.
7 or 8.
They don't have a lot.
And density,
Density has, I think, about the same number, maybe less, at 5 or 6.
and MODAD,
MODAD has more, but I'm not sure how many they have. Let me see.
but it's significantly more, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
So maybe 20-ish,
20-ish?
20-ish, in that
And-
neighborhood.
Okay, and AWT,
WT has a lot more than that.
yeah, it
don't
was
they, Cal?
120,
Is that 120 some odd? I know you've
Yeah.
got a few in other parishes. So the bulk of them are here in this parish, and I would say that sounds about
so,
right.
and I guess one of the things that I've learned going through this process, and you kind of alluded to it a minute ago when you talk about in compliance, is basically multiple ways of looking at that. These companies are submitting tests on a routine
Right.
basis, and if they bust a test, like you were speaking to earlier, then basically they're kind of out of compliance with that. But, excuse me, as long as they're working to get those things back in, and there's a lot of factors
Taking corrective actions.
and there's a lot of environmental factors that come into play, whether you have a large rainstorm or something like that, when you have a mandatory
Illicit
test.
discharge that they're
Correct.
unaware, I mean, those things happen.
So those things happen to them, and sometimes that's one of the things that, in their defense, that some things are out of their control when they have some of those things. But basically, one of the other ways of looking at this is what type of required treatment, what level that they're supposed to be treating their waste to.
Right.
And so basically, in that regard, how many folks are at that level where they're supposed to be treating to?
Okay. The permit limit establishes the level of treatment. So if they say you're supposed to treat to where you can meet a certain TSS level or a certain BOD level, that's what the limits are measuring, whether or not they're effectively treating that wastewater. Are you disinfecting appropriately? So you look at the discharge monitoring reports and the effluents to determine if they are effectively treating. So that is a measure of whether or not they're effectively treating the wastewater.
Okay. So, but in return, the amount of tests that they bust over a period of time would tell whether their plant's operating.
Yeah, that would
Correctly.
certainly be an indication.
Right, okay.
If you see sustained, fecal problems, your chlorination or your disinfection is not working, or you're not managing it properly. If you have other issues, then that's indicative of some problems in your treatment system.
How many current orders or consents or whatever your terminology that you have within your department do we have in the parish right now?
And for these facilities, the number-wise aren't going to be that many, because what we've done is we've done global orders. All of the TESIs are under an order. All of the AWTs are under an order, except for a couple of facilities. The MODADs are under a global order. The densities are under a global order. So you have a relatively few number of orders, but they cover
All of
almost
the
all
systems
of
they
these
have.
facilities, yes.
Okay.
Is that, I can get you the exact number. I don't have that right now, but if the company, if we're going to do something with a company, we try to do it globally if they have problems across a number of their facilities. So if you have a facility that's an AWT here in this parish, it's under one of those orders. If you have a density or a MODAD or a TESI, they're under an order.
Yeah. Mr. Cluett?
Yes, so thanks for the explanation. So in other words, if somebody got 10 units operating and they got issues with 2 or 3, then when the order goes out, it basically covers the company-wide.
Typically, we do. 'Cause, what you're usually going to find is there's going to be something at all 10.
Right.
Maybe it's only 2 or 3 little small things at 5 of them and some big things at the other 5. And so what we do is we capture all of those things and put them under an order for all of those things.
Quick, just a.
For the ones that we know about, they may
Yeah.
buy some later that we don't put under there, but we try to catch them, all the ones we have at that time. Yes.
Everybody that's in charge of anything's under different requirements, EPA, DQ, whatever. A quick question, and this may not be something you can answer, and you can defer it if you want.
Okay.
I've heard it said before that I guess the limits are set to where, has the laws changed, has the limits changed, the regulations changed, that basically made it impossible or infeasible or financially impossible for somebody to reach that's operating a unit? Or do the laws get phased in basically with time?
What we're seeing now, especially in this watershed, you're in the Pontchartrain Basin, we're under a court order, and EPA is as well, to
Right.
do total maximum daily loads throughout the state. There are a number of impairments in the Pontchartrain Basin, particularly on the North Shore, in this area and some of the other parishes along the North Shore. That sets, I'm trying to find an easy way to explain this. When you issue permits, there are levels of treatment. There's technology-based. What can this type of wastewater treatment effectively be treated down to? What can you do with that? And you have water quality-based standards. Some of them we deal with specific parameters. And then you have a different type of water quality, which is the total maximum daily load. Those are pollutant-specific. So if you have, say, a fecal impairment or a DO impairment, the limits are going to be based on what that water body can assimilate, what it can handle, what's the total maximum daily load. And what happens then is in very simple terms, is they say the river or the water body can take this much, okay? I'm going to take out so much percent for non-point source. I'm going to take out so much percent for future growth. And I'm going to divvy up the rest between the existing users. And you set the limits based on that. So that when all of those water bodies, all of those discharges are emptying into it, you've got your margin of safety, your non-point source, and you're saying now they can meet that load. Hopefully that'll bring that water body, if everybody's in compliance, back into an attainment area. I'm mixing media, I'm sorry. It'll help it meet its designated uses.
Sure.
And that's what the total maximum daily load is designed. It's more of a water quality limitation as opposed to a technology-based limitation.
I mean,
Is that
you know,
totally confusing?
No, and that's good, because the root cause of what we try to do is clear up the water.
Right. We
That's in
want-
Ascension Parish and traveling below us.
Right. What each water body or each subsegment is assigned designated uses. You know, most everybody has primary and secondary contact recreation and propagation of fish and wildlife. And some of them have drinking water, some of them have agriculture use, some of them have other uses. And so there are standards that each water body must meet to demonstrate attainment of that use. And we have to report that on a regular basis to EPA. And that's what kind of drives the TMDL. They're looking at those water bodies that are in areas that aren't meeting their uses.
And I know I asked you to speak a lot, but I just wanted everybody that's listening or watching, or everybody to understand that, you
So
know,
those are the
up
things
on-
driving this.
on the Amite River, you know,
Yep.
75 miles up, they don't have the same attainment as we do.
They have problems up there too.
I know that, but in other words, it
But
can be,
yeah.
it can be different because the way the waterways feed
Right.
into another waterway and the
Because you
things
look
that.
at what the flow is in the river, it's going to be smaller up at the headwaters.
Yeah,
So you
so
look
there's-
at a combination of
there-
that and the discharges and the amount that they're discharging.
So there's not just one number that comes down that says, hey, you got to meet this number, everybody around
Yeah,
the country.
The permits
I
have
want-
to assign it based on that case.
I want to just make sure everybody understands that.
Okay.
That's a personal thing to that area.
Mr. President.
Yeah, and I think you kind of asked some of the questions that I would ask Randy, but EPA actually sets the standards. Is that correct? And then when they,
EPA sets the technology-based. We have our water quality-based. Most sanitary sewers aren't going to have water quality-based limits because those are more toxics. But they do oversee and approve our TMDLs. So we have to implement them in accordance with their values.
so if they change their limitations or whatever,
Yeah, we fight
then
with
you
them all
have,
the time.
but at some point, if they change the rules in the game, sort of like non-attainment with the air quality, you know, when you get to a certain point, we seem like in the 5 parish area here, we will reach attainment, then all of a sudden they set
the
the
standard.
standards a little higher, and we reach attainment, and they set the standards a little higher again. So
As with air, we are a delegated program, meaning we administer the federal program. So we are obligated to implement those federal standards when they change.
That's what my question is, and when they
Okay.
do, say, like Mr. Pertree's system here, when you have a new order that comes in with the specifications,
Right.
I think at that point, is when you have like 4 years to get into
Typically,
compliance.
I think it's 3 years for TMDL, correct, Celine?
3,
Yeah.
okay.
It's 3
So
years.
again, and so it gives them 3 years to upgrade the system.
Right, the
So-
TMDLs are public notice, so you have a kind of advance notice of what's coming before the 3 years. You kind of have an idea.
At least you get a little warning
Yeah, a
there,
little
where
warning.
air quality, you don't. But anyway, that was what I wanted to clarify.
Mr. Sadler?
Yeah, I kind of promised everybody I wouldn't say anything tonight.
But you can't keep that from?
Let me start with apologizing for having you come out this afternoon and give up your, I'm sure, which is to all of us, your valuable time. But I'm the guy, if you're familiar with the history, that made the motion last time, that let's all take a deep breath and kind of relook at this thing again, because honestly, and I admitted that last time, I voted with this committee to support the resolution in question, but having hearing a testimony last time and not being able, when the full council met, getting a clear answer from various public officials in the administration and in our legal department as to this idea in the fourth whereas, Ms. Nolan, where it says about the current non-compliance,
Okay,
that
I'm
maybe
sorry,
we could get it in a definitive answer. And what I'm seeing from your testimony tonight, and I'm very glad, I think it was President Martinez or whoever asked you to come here, or maybe that was you, I don't really know, but whoever did it, thank you, because we need to hear from you. But what I heard was this, relative to 3 private sewer companies, Density, Tessie, and Modad, respectively anywhere from bankruptcy to troubles with the EPA and expected further problems with one of Modad's significant non-compliance issues, you testified with expectation of more troubles. With AWT, I heard you say that while they're under a large quote-unquote global order, they are, and here's the word, significantly in compliance, and with the addition, you didn't hesitate to do that no one is 100%. You said you were guardedly optimistic.
I'm guardedly optimistic. I'm
I
hopeful.
love that.
I'm hopeful that AWT can sustain
So,
this compliance.
all right, so let me ask you this then. All right, so, and I appreciate also the education that I think one of my colleagues asked for. about how does it go down, and I captured this: a warning, a notice of deficiency, enforcement action, a notice of a penalty with scheduled upgrades and so forth. I didn't hear the word compliance order. Is that?
That's an order. An order.
So
It's a
that's at the
compliance order.
bottom step.
Now that, you start, a warning letter, if it's minor stuff, you would want them to try to give them opportunity to warn them. And if you don't have compliance from a warning letter, you go to a compliance order. We typically call that
And
an
the
order.
truth is, all of the companies that do business in our parish, private sewer companies, have compliance orders out
Most
there.
of them, I would say, those are the ones that I
And
named
that's why you
down.
can't say, because it's not all settled up, even with AWD, that's 100%, right? Let me ask you this: do other parishes that have private sewer companies, are there any of them 100% in compliance?
I could not at this moment say that any parish that has private sewers are 100% in compliance. I
And
can't tell you
if
they
we get into the
don't.
sewer business and we seem headed there with our SRF loan, the $60 million, et cetera, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, there's a good chance we wouldn't be 100% in compliant, at least at some times, and we're going to have to work to try to get back to audit. And I want to use this phraseology as we go through this process. My colleagues often remind me not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If the baby's dirty, you might change the water, but don't throw the baby out. I'm a little bit concerned tonight that, this resolution remains with words like many in it, not defining who. And I've heard the arguments of my colleagues about, well, that doesn't necessarily reflect this company or that, it just lets the PSC make their mind up. Nonetheless, I asked their legal counsel last time, and I firmly believe this, that if you have to go to the PSC and ask for a rate increase, and you're arguing with or without a resolution from this council on your back, it can indeed influence people. In fact, why even go through this process if we're not trying to influence an outcome? So I think it's not correct on our part to say that it's just that easy, but I have these primary concerns yet in order to convince me to continue to vote the way I have. To me, it looks like from your testimony, this resolution would be better, as I just said, if it were aimed at 3 of the 4 companies as opposed to all 4. Would you agree with that?
I'm not going to speak about.
I didn't think you would.
I'm not going to do that.
All right, well, okay, let me try something else.
Yeah, we don't
If
deal with
there's-
rate increases.
I
We're
know
not
you-
a party to that.
And I know you have no crystal ball here, but if there's denial of the rate increase to Ascension wastewater by the Public Service Commission, I wonder, will that likely cause us problems later on when we kick off our government modified P16 sewer program and essentially have to ask for a much higher rate to bridge the gap, because I'm pretty sure that with the lack of customers in the beginning, we're not going to be able to offer any kind of a discount without asking President Martinez, or depending on the time frame of this, whoever his replacement is, to just suck up some red ink on the books, which is never a good thing, even if it's thought to be temporary. So if they are significantly in compliance, Ms. Nolan, would you be willing to at least say, are they 90 to 95% in compliance? Are they like 75, 80? Or the word significantly, I'm a research scientist, and when we actually can use statistics to test what is meant by the word significant,
Okay.
in scientific terms,
Okay.
if something is significantly relevant, when you do an experiment and get an outcome, then you're 95% certain that what you did is so, and if you did the experiment again, it would come out the same way. If it's highly significant, you're 99% so. And I'm troubled about the idea that no one's perfect and will ever be 100%, including, like I said, ourselves. So would you care to put a percentage on it
just-
for me? You won't do that?
Again, with the ones we've looked at, we're thinking 85, 90%. Just on the ones we've looked at, and that's conservative, because I'm a conservative person. I'm not going to say 99. But that's, we did look at a limited subset for this meeting. So I can't say 100%, but I would say around the 90 area, based on what we've seen.
To my understanding, Mr. Pertwee, the owner of this company, has met with all the councilmen except one who had a conflict with work and couldn't get together. And I'd be part of that group that he has met. And he's indicated to me that we can bring him up to the mic if the information is trustworthy. I have no reason to believe it isn't. Several thousands of tests have been performed just in the
Okay.
last calendar year by his company. And allegedly passed them with flying colors. Is that so?
Again, our file review indicated over the period of time, what was our review, the 3 years? There were some effluent violations during that period of time that were reported on DMRs. And, you know, we can share that with you. You have the results of the file review. We do have some where there were issues, and there may be other things, late reporting, that we're looking at as well.
So you won't have pity on me. I have to make a decision on guardedly optimistic. No one's 100%.
No one's 100%.
You know, encouraged and so forth and so on. And that's what we're going to go on tonight.
You know, again, you know, we do look at all of them. They have made great strides. We're happy with that.
Can we break the word down, guardedly optimistic? Guardedly would mean that you have concern even to be optimistic. Is that because of the past track record historically?
Yes,
Or?
I mean, you know, very candidly, you know, and Mr. Pertwee's aware of this, they have a very long history with noncompliance for a number of years. And I've been very candid with them about my concerns about that.
When do you feel like they started to try to fix all this real good? When they got the compliance order?
They've had a global order before, and I think the second one, we had some very, very candid discussions with Mr. DeSherry and his co-counsels about what our expectations were, and something happened. And we started seeing the improvements that we've seen over the last few years with the schedule as they come into compliance and they do the things that we ordered them to do. They've put some investment into remote sensing through the SCADA system, which is very positive, and we're happy about that. That speaks to overflows and pump outages. When we look at noncompliance, we also look at where there are discharges from pump station and wet wells due to pumps going out, and we're seeing a decline in that as well.
And a final question, the parish council, the full council meeting last time, one of the councilmen mentioned the idea of, I don't believe he's here tonight, but he's not on this committee anyway, during the storms, which we get. It seems like we get them all the time since Katrina now, Gustav, Isaac, whatever. We can and we do go without electricity. I know in Prairieville I was without it for 5 days and couldn't keep all my fish alive in my saltwater aquarium. And of course, we know what that would do to the backup of sewage and so forth without backup systems. Does your organization, as a federal watchdog agency, require that these companies in any way put in these backup systems? Generators and so forth, in the event of a storm, they continue to have our toilets flushing into the pipes and not into our bathtubs?
That has become an issue with I think DHH as well as us, because DHH kind of has an overlay on some of that. And I know that that's primarily been more in their area where they're working with companies to have those backup generators. We look at it, they're looking at it from the backing up into the house. That's their part of that equation. We're looking at it for getting out in the community. So they've been working with them, and when we've been working with them. And during the storm, you know, I was encouraged by some of the backup generation that he's talked about, where they can move it around and get
Okay,
those pumps
that's
going.
now you're hitting upon something. So,
That's kind of more in the
so
operation
even though he's not
maintenance.
forced to do this, he saw the need to do it.
There is a need, and I think it's a practical need because of where we live. And, you know, we have storms, we know they come. I don't think that we have a requirement that they have backup. They're required to have backup at the facility. When you start going out into the collection system, that's a little grayer, I think. But I know that DHH has been working with companies for those kind of backup capabilities and generators. And when we do have a storm, we work with the parishes and the companies to try to gather those resources in the event that there are problems, so that those things can be addressed.
Thank you, Ms. Nolan.
4 years ago, 5 years ago, I think, Tommy, we passed an ordinance that required any new systems that they put in backup generators, correct? Or at least have the connections
I don't
for
think
it.
you passed it. I'm
We
not
didn't?
sure. But I think we talked about it quite a bit, but I don't think it ever got passed.
Okay. I couldn't remember if it, I knew we'd had some discussion on it. I couldn't remember if we landed on a deal where they had to put it in, or at least put in connections for some generators to where it wouldn't have to do a whole bunch of work to get them there. Mr. Turner?
How you doing? I just have one quick question. So we have roughly 4 providers in our parish.
I wouldn't say that.
We
Those are
got-
those are the bigger ones.
Those are the bigger ones, but we,
But you do have, like a trailer park may have its own permit, a small business. So there are a number of permitted entities in the parish.
Well,
Those
the
are the
fo-
4 big private sewers.
Well, out the 4 large private sewers we have, which one would you feel more comfortable with?
Based on what we see today,
Yes.
AWT,
Okay.
I think I can say that.
Okay.
anything else? Mr. Joseph?
She said trailer parks. Just
If you have a
question.
trailer park that's not connected to a system and they're collecting the sewage and treating it, they're required to have a permit unless they're hooked into another system. An apartment complex that's not tied into a system, that doesn't have a private, they're going to have to do it. If you have a restaurant and you're not tied into a public system, there are restaurants that have permits, or a car wash. I mean, any kind of entity that has a discharge either through like a sewer, a showers, or things like that, they are required to have permits, and we have a number of those in the parish.
Well, my question is, do they have to go to Public Service Commission, going to increase, or they just?
Well, no, they're on their, I
They're on
mean,
their
if you're
own.
in a trailer park or something, you may have to, I don't know
Yeah,
for
you'd
sure,
have
but
to
like,
ask the Public Service Commission.
but if you,
If
you
it's
know, like, if you're an
included in
individual
rent, I think
restaurant,
they're
it's on
different.
your own, you're
Yeah,
paying,
I
you're paying the
understand
stuff
that.
there, so
Trailer
it's,
park
you-
was
right. Yeah, business, so you run into
Public
those
Service
type of things.
Commission regulates these guys because they're charging a fee.
Right. You had something else, Mr.
Yeah,
Sarver?
yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. One more question came up as a result of that. I've heard our parish president talk in the past about the parish is actually not new to the sewer business, and we're not, because we have several small systems. Not trying to remember exactly what he said, but I recall his testimony at past meetings to the end of these people that were doing so poorly, we wound up being forced more or less to take some, if not all, these systems over. So the systems that the parish runs now, are they in compliance?
I'd have to get back with you on that. We didn't prepare for that particular question, but we can prepare you that response and come back if you would like that.
Well, maybe I should have directed the question to Tommy. For the record, I heard the president say we haven't gotten any orders, and again, I was just seeking information. I was not trying to
Yeah, I
trap the
don't-
parish, but if we're going to get into business, I think the public needs to understand, you're a big federal watchdog agency, and we're a local governing authority. So we're not exempt from your
Nope.
your eye.
No.
Right, and so
Right.
if the
Go
president's
talk to
saying we're not
Baton
under
Rouge
order,
about it.
we at least have taken those systems that were a disaster and done something positive with
I know
them.
some years back, there was an order to the city of
And it would
Gonzales.
be my
jailhouse,
sincere
huh?
hope that when we get into
Yeah, I think we-
I didn't say if, but when we get into the modified P16 system as a start, and what I've often called the crawl, walk, run strategy, and I think this body has called it more of just a phase 1, 2, 3, that we would, never allow us within human error to get more than, I can't pin you to 95 or 99%, and that you'd have the grace to work through the warning, notice of deficiency, enforcement action, blah, blah, blah process.
I will tell you, for EPA, there are expectations on how we monitor major water facilities. And as a municipality, most of those are major water facilities, and there's a very comprehensive, way that they require us to look at that and levels of response we have when facilities.
So you
go
work
out
with
of compliance.
municipalities and so forth, say like the city of Gonzales in the same way. If they mess up, they get a,
Yep.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Ms. Cheryl, I'm gonna throw you a
I
curveball.
believe President Martinez had something to say.
I was just going to say that when I first became parish president in the 90s, that one of the first things that got thrown on my desk was an order from EPA and for Country Ridge. And it was a sewer, it was actually, it was a sewer district that was created and ran out of money, didn't do anything, and was totally out of compliance. And the federal government said since we created the sewer district and that they basically abandoned it, that we were responsible because it was like if you have a baby, it's still your baby, you created it. So, I don't know, I get Ricky Babin, who's the DA now, and he and I pack our bags and we go to Dallas. That's where they told us to come. So, told us we were going to get fined $50,000 a day. We didn't show up and try to do something, and we kind of felt like we could go up there and argue the case, but I can assure you that we did not win the case, and we came back and we spent several $100,000 in getting Country Ridge into compliance, and today it's still in compliance as far as I know, hopefully. But I'd never want to make that trip again to Dallas, so I'll just tell you that we monitor those systems very closely.
So we visited a few systems within the state, and not sure how far or what your knowledge is too far outside of Ascension, but St. Bernard was one of them, and the rebuild after Katrina. Do you have Lake Charles is another new facility they put in over there, and also was Houma?
Morgan City.
Morgan City. That had an existing facility that's 16, 17 years old, I think, that we visited. From a compliance standpoint of view with those three different entities, do you have any idea about where they might be at, or can you speak to that right now?
So you went, which St. Bernard? Because there's a number of facilities in Lake Charles. I think they have, what, 3 plants?
Yeah, the newer one that they
Plants?
built out, the newest one that they built.
A, B, or C, because that's how I know them.
New one's a D plant.
Do we have anything going on those? I know we've done some things with the others. We can find that out for you. You just tell me the names of the facility-specific ones, and we'll look up and see where they stand.
Okay. That kind of gives us a reference, kind of,
They're not ringing any bells.
Right.
I signed them all, so.
right. So, yeah, that's a good thing. But, you know, in going to, part of the discussion is about the next item on the agenda is a resolution, and that's one of the thing about it is that while you say significantly in compliance, where you have someone that's in the 90-plus range or whatever the percentage may be for them to be in compliance or not have any buffs on their test, it's actually not too bad whenever you consider that you have a lot of outlying issues that are beyond your control that you can't control that affect the test and what your treatments are. And so while the ultimate goal that we have, I believe, would be to try to be in compliance 100%. There are some things that are outside of our control or anybody's control that would have that, but it's the ones that are consistently have been through history out of compliance and not doing anything about it that are our concern, and is partly why it's getting kind of pushed in our lap in the conversations that we've been having between the parish and your agency for years now, and wanting us to try to do something with it. And that's kind of what drove this resolution, to try to make sure that we're in a position. But again, thank you for the information. I think it was very helpful, and hopefully we'll get you some more information on those other plants so we can find out some more information.
Yeah,
Because
tell me the names. If you want a history of the municipal here in the parish, let me know. If you want the specific plants that you visited, let me know. We can either provide it to you or come back and talk about it.
fantastic.
Okay?
Thanks again. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Okay, we're moving on to item number 9, which we now have moved up to item number 5, I believe. And it's the resolution. Mr. DeSherry, you and Mr. Rieger signed up for both of them. Do y'all want to speak again, or? Mr. Rieger?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, again, Rob Rieger, Adams and Reese for Ascension Wastewater Treatment. I'm not going to be long at all. I'll just stand by the same statements we made at the original hearing before the full council. If you were to ask me what the difference is between where AWT was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and today, the answer is very simply it's money. We were able to obtain rates back in 2011 that allowed us to borrow the money to be able to make the improvements. The rate case we have pending right now is to do exactly the same thing, plus pick up the backup generators and give more sustainability and reliability to the system that we have. We believe that the resolution under consideration serves a negative disincentive to folks that would lend us the money. And also, we believe, creates an environment that would make potential investors in facilities such as ours or others a little bit reluctant to come into compliance, to enter the parish and sink investment capital into it. So for all those reasons, we would ask that you not move the resolution, that you keep it here in committee, or that you if you were to proceed with it, and that would not be our request, that you excise or exempt Ascension wastewater treatment from it. And I'll be happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
I got a quick question.
Sure, Mr. Cluett.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Rigger, at the Donaldsonville meeting, council meeting, I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't go back and watch the film, but I think you said that Ascension wastewater was in compliant.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I did say that, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, after the council meeting, as Mr. Sadler alluded to, this was kicked back to us for consideration. I sent an email out to all the council members looking for comments or suggestions on, corrections or changes to it. We received one back. I'm not going to read the original resolution unless it's requested, but I will look at, and everybody has a copy of the submitted one. Basically, if you look at the fifth whereas, the paragraph above that, the word insanitary is recommended to be changed to unsanitary. The paragraph below that, the fifth whereas, is asked to be replaced with the following. Whereas there have been prior instances of private wastewater treatment providers being granted increased rates, but not the provider, start over. Whereas there have been prior instances of private wastewater treatment providers being granted increased rates, but not the provider not having reinvested those monies towards improvements toward obtaining compliance. And the now therefore paragraph reads as follows. Be it duly resolved by the Ascension Parish Council of the Parish of Ascension that the Ascension Parish Council hereby recommends that the Public Service Commission strongly consider rejecting any request for an increase in rates by any private wastewater treatment providers operating in the Parish of Ascension that are currently in non-compliance with the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality. Furthermore, should the Public Service Commission end up granting these rate increases, it is our request that they routinely audit these providers to ensure that these improvements are in fact being completed for the good of our citizens who would be paying these increased rates and for the good of our impacted waterways. So that is recommendations for change to the original resolution. And I'll open the floor up for discussion on either that or other changes that the committee would recommend. Mr. Sadler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of clarity first, and then I think I do have a question. So what we have in our packet, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth whereas in yellow would be deleted and replaced with the sixth, which will become the fifth whereas, which is in green. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I would like to state for the record that I'm very glad to see, I don't know who authored that, I'm not asking for that, but wish I'd have thought of it. I had that feeling too, that I don't think it's appropriate for us to be talking in a resolution that if we later wound up sitting with any of these entities and try to buy their assets, that our concern is about it changing the amount that we may have to pay. So I'm very pleased to see that happen. On the other hand, the new whereas causes me a little bit of angst I didn't have before. Are we sure for all entities, including AWT, and we need to cut to the chase. I mean, what's the name of this company? It's new to me. Tessie. Obviously, Density, the bankruptcy in Georgia, Modad, they're not here. And they weren't at the full council meeting or even when we passed this resolution through this committee last time. So this is all about AWT. Does that sixth whereas, which is now fifth in green, become, is it pointed at these guys? Have they not used monies from past rate increases to actually improve their systems? And I think we owe it to let them speak to that issue.
That is not, in my understanding, and talking to the author of that, what's happening, it's basically, again, to clarify, this is not pointed at any one individual company.
No.
And so to say that it's against AWT is wrong. To go over there and basically what this is for is that we have multiple companies before the Public Service Commission that are requesting rate increase, and there are others that are potentially going to go and do that. And so that's why the resolution was drafted in the base. It's not pointed at anyone. And if it was, then names would be there. And that's one of the things that I would make a comment on, is that to single out one or do something else is saying that in my opinion, that we're giving some kind of benefit or grace that it's not ours to give, in my opinion. And so I wouldn't read anything into that other than to say that in order to make sure that any monies that are granted, or raises that are granted, that we see some kind of reinvestment in that. Because one of the things you have to keep in mind, and it was stated at the council meeting, majority, if not all of these systems were donated to these companies. They paid nothing for them. And so through the profits of the years that they've been making on these systems, to come in and need more funds to do reinvestment into them, I understand it to a point, but the argument can be made by some, has been discussed with me by people that I've talked to, is that what guarantees we have that any increased revenue is going to go into these systems to get them where they need to be at over the long haul, and that it's not going to be money that's just pocketed. Again, that's comments made to me, and so if that's where that's at, again, it's not directed at any one individual company or anything else. It's just a matter of if the investment's there and looking at where we are with sewer to make sure that any dollars that the parish has to put out from investments later on, that we are assured that it's going in the right place.
Can I address that?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to have to respectfully agree to disagree on this idea that this resolution is not pointed specifically at AWT. I mean, I can read and I see it says many without singling them out. We just heard legal counsel for that company saying, I'm not telling you what to do, but we'd like to be audited for the reasons that they gave. But as far as I know, there are only two companies, correct me if I'm wrong, that are currently asking the Public Service Commission for a rate increase. And AWT is half of that equation, the other one being MODAD. So I do believe that whereas does sort of point, when theirs comes up, the resolution's there at them. And if I'm on the PSC, I'm sitting there saying, this full council is saying that this company, or is implying it at least, let me be careful, not this company, but they're implying it with the word many private companies, and there's only two that are asking for the rate increase again, have not reinvested this money. And with that, I'd like, I don't know who can answer this, but someone from the company, maybe Mr. Pertwee or Mr. Riga would ever come forward and answer this question for me, sir.
Yes, sir.
In past rate increases, have you guys taken that money and reinvested it into your sewer systems?
Every penny plus some.
Or did you pocket it as profit?
We reinvested every bit of money we borrowed back into the system plus some. Mr. Pertwee has put private assets into it as well. Absolutely, every penny.
And I have no reason to disbelieve you in any way, right?
Absolutely not.
Even though this resolution accuses, indirectly your company and another company that would be, is going to have to deal with it at the PSC level if it were to pass here, that you guys aren't putting the money back in, and you're saying that's just not so.
That is absolutely not so.
Thank you.
If I could, to elaborate, in our order that we got for our last rate case, and I touched on this in Donaldsonville, part of what we had to do was issue and report to both DEQ and to the Public Service Commission standard reports of the things we had done for that particular quarter. We had a certified engineer come out and certify that the improvements were done. The Public Service Commission reviewed it, DEQ reviewed it, that we had done all those things. So that we're used to that sort of review of what we do. We are more than happy to show that our ratepayer dollars have gone in to do the things that we said they're to do.
Mr. Cluett?
Yeah, I don't have anything for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, real quick, Doc, I'll respectfully disagree. I think on some points, but you and I agree on most of them. I think the company that's here tonight did a pretty good job within the last 2 months of putting on a full court press, and I applaud you guys for that. All right? But, and we haven't heard from the other companies, they hadn't came forward, that the ones that or do have a petition in for a rate increase, and those that might be thinking of a rate increase, or some way out, or something, okay? But we represent people. This has never this resolution, this council, this committee for sure, has never brought up a resolution to go against one company. We actually represent these guys because you are in Ascension Parish, okay? We're trying to look out the best will for people, right? And I can't say that I haven't gotten calls on multiple companies that didn't take care of their business, right? That it appeared that they didn't put back in the infrastructure in a timely manner. This resolution is going forward asking the Public Service Commission to do their due diligence and actually represent people on the next level that we're doing. Take a good look at these rate increases. We can make the numbers do whatever they want. I don't want to talk any more about any one company. This resolution is for the better health and the better welfare, and what the goal of this committee and the ultimate responsibility of the parish council is to look for the better half of the better welfare of the people that live here. Anybody and any committee we have, you pick transportation, utilities, go to major drainage, just pick a committee. Some regulation, some resolution, some position of that committee, this committee, and the council is not going to be favorable to everybody. Right? We're trying to attain the federal regulations. We're trying to make it better. All right? This is what happens when something just keeps coming up and coming up and coming up, is the fact that it becomes personal. You have one person fighting. You have two people fighting against it, okay? Like I said, I applaud everything that any company out there is trying to do right now. This resolution is not, one more time, is not pointed at any one person or any one company. We have made a major investment in Ascension Parish. We have actually took on some debt in Ascension Parish that we as a council and a committee person are responsible for trying to use that money that we're borrowing to make this life better for everybody in this parish. And we're going to continue to try to do that. We have a very, very strong obligation. We're not private business. We represent people. We were elected by people to represent them on this level. And 2 levels up that they can't get a hold to, they can't talk to, and for sure the federal government that they can't talk to, we have to speak for them. We have to put our best foot forward for them. When we have something that a little bit controversial, we always have somebody that it's personal for. It might be personal for a hardware store next week. Might be personal for a road company next week in a different committee. We're trying to let the Public Service Commission, that we're trying to turn the corner in Ascension Parish. We're trying to clean up the ditches, clean up the waterways. Please, give it a good look. Don't just let the numbers reflect. Let the history, let the plan that's put in place reflect. And the fact that I represent people that don't necessarily want a raise in their rates. I have people that have just had raises in their rates not too many years ago that they can't remember it. They remember it very well. Okay? It's surely not my position to put anybody out of business. I wish everybody thrived. I believe in capitalism. I believe in good business. Move forward. Do good. You got a good product, you ought to be able to sell it. We're going to ask, this resolution is to ask the Public Service Commission to represent the people of Ascension Parish within the district that we're in. That's what we're asking. We're asking them to take a good, close look that just because right now this is needed, what's been needed, what's been done. That's all it is, okay? We constantly get bombarded, and it becomes a personal issue. there's nowhere in the original resolution, there was nowhere in the original conversations that talked about any one company. Will it affect one more than another? It probably will. Everything we do affects some people more than others. But we have to put our best foot forward. We sat here and talked for a year and a half about how 20 years ago sewer came up. We could have really put in some infrastructure for 25% of what we're spending now. Well, we got to bite the bullet and do it. There's some strong, occurrences that, revocations that's going to happen if we don't get our waters cleaned up. All right? We talked about 2 years ago, we had, EPA had everybody here. There's going to be a certain amount of limitations on how many houses we can build, how much business we can bring in, because we keep dumping stuff out the drains, all right, into the waterways. Our goal is to get it out of the ponds, get it out of the ditches, get it out the regular waterways where people are skiing and they got their camps out there, and there's probably people inside this room, they got a camp on a major waterway that may not be real good to swim in. Let's move it, let's treat it, let's move it to the Mississippi River. That's what we're trying to do. Continually lose focus of the mission based on the fact that it's being pushed and pushed and pushed to make it something personal against somebody else. The people that elected and the people that serve in the administration have a responsibility to the people of Ascension Parish, including the business owners. And I wish all of them the best of luck, but I represent people. Thank you.
Mr. Turner.
Yes, I would like to make a substitute motion to,
No motion's been made. That was just that was just something that we got, okay?
I didn't make a motion.
Any of that stuff can be changed around, okay? So we're just kind of starting from scratch. So if you want to make it as a motion, go right ahead.
one of the resolution on paragraph,
The original or the
update-
amended?
the supplemental one we have.
Supplement,
Yeah.
okay.
On paragraph seven,
Which one is that?
yeah, paragraph 7 says, now therefore,
Okay.
Okay.
be it duly resolved by the Ascension Parish Council of the Parish of Ascension, the Ascension Parish Council hereby recommends that the Public Service Commission strongly consider rejecting any requests for an increase in rates by any private wastewater treatment providers operating in the Parish of Ascension that are currently not in significant compliance as defined by the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality.
You want to add not insignificant, because it says not in,
Yeah, I wanted to
So
delete
you want to add in,
not in significant compliance as
Significant
defined by the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality, and delete non-compliance with the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality.
not insignificant compliance per DEQ.
Yes.
And scratch out not in non-compliance with Louisiana DEQ, okay.
All right.
Okay. As far as the rest of it, the motion is going to be as it was resent with, taking out the whereas it's in yellow and adding everything else is,
Yes.
okay. So we have a motion to approve the resolution with the changes in green added, ones in yellow strike, and then on the, therefore, paragraph, add in, scratch in non-compliance with Louisiana DEQ, and add in place not in significant compliance per Louisiana DEQ. Do we have a second?
I'm not making a second, but I might make it up. Can I make a question?
Question? Sure.
Discussion.
We ain't gonna follow parliamentary procedures too hard on this.
All
We're
right,
talking
well-
about this resolution. We'll hash it out. Let's go.
I have significant appreciation, I have a lot of appreciation for what Councilman Turner is suggesting, but I'm wondering, is it totally rectified still with that fourth paragraph, which we're all agreeing to disagree about what the many means as it relates to current non-compliance? In this case, the current non-compliance, could we, or do we need a friendly well, parliamentary procedure says there's no amendment that's friendly, but do we need an amendment to fix current non-compliance? I mean, if we're going to start to play, and I'm using this in quotes, I don't really believe it's a game, but the game of
Yeah,
talking
Doc,
about
on the stage.
non-significant, that, it's not a pregnancy issue, being pregnant or not. But I like where he's headed with this, not insignificant compliance. That would allow then the PSC to decide what is their definition of significant compliance versus us sitting here trying to decide whether it's, 90%, 95, particularly
Well,
when the DEQ
if-
individual won't
If-
even tell me.
Well, what I understand you saying, but what I think Councilman Turner's alluding to
Maybe
is
it's okay,
DEQ is giving us the definition of what significant is.
Well, they are non-compliant if even they're 1%, so maybe the language in the fourth paragraph doesn't need changing. But I do like a lot about what Travis just had to say about changing the word non-compliance in the now therefore to not insignificant compliance. Is that,
You want to change paragraph 4?
No.
not necessarily, I'm just asking, do we need to do that?
I don't think so.
I mean, assuming he gets a second and it gets passed through.
I'd like to make a second.
Okay, we got a second on the motion for the resolution with the changes that we outlined earlier. And so,
Discussion.
Mr. Joseph.
I just got a question, because
Certainly.
it came up, and it's always, for me, I just want to clarify. Okay, we're using wastewater as it, I mean, me and you discussed it.
yeah.
And do we want to make a statement, say, private utility companies? Because there's a water company that's going to go in here for a rate increase, there's gas company,
We got
or do we
complaints on
should
those?
come back later? and-
So what we got, and not to interrupt you, but basically in that same paragraph where we talked about, consider rejecting any request for increase by rates by private wastewater treatment providers, what we talked about was private utility providers. Changing that wording to that.
And that way you won't be discriminating or pointing out one person or another. I'm just throwing that out. I mean, all we look at is separate to make sure we cover ourselves.
Mr. Kluwer.
Yeah, I'd like a little input from either legal or if we get too broad with this, I know it's our wishes that we'll follow, but
What I've got from this is that
the private,
DEQ said they have a definition of what is if you're not in, what significant compliance is. And that's what Travis refers to.
Correct.
So as I read this resolution, what we're saying is that anybody who is in significant compliance wouldn't be judged by this. And I think that's what the attempt is, that if you're in significant compliance, this doesn't apply to you.
correct.
If you're not in significant compliance, this applies to you. And we're only looking at wastewater because that's what we're talking about right now. So
And
I
that
don't-
just was a question.
Yeah.
Question.
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
I'm not quite finished.
Go ahead, Randy.
Anyway, I agree with Councilman Joseph that, we probably got a decent number of complaints on yellow water and brown water, so is it worth going forward with this, or do we lose focus of the mission?
I think it's worth talking about, because the only issue you have right now is Public Service Commission is considering increases requests by wastewater treatment facilities. Does it muddy the water? I don't think so, but that's my opinion.
So you feel good with the
I don't have a problem with it.
utilities?
I don't have a problem with that.
Me either.
Mr. Sally?
Yeah, my question is to legal counsel. So O'Neill, it sounds like, without you saying it, I know it's not necessarily your job to cheerlead one way or another, but the change that Travis Stern is asking for, by getting rid of in non-compliance to not in significant compliance, it would then read to a person on the PSC board to decide what significant is, and therefore sort of take the onus off of us of saying that we have a belief structure going into this.
Well,
I'm not trying to put words in, but.
no, but the DEQ, Ms. Nolan pretty much defined what significant compliance was. Nobody's going to be in 100%. She said what significant, so if you're in significant compliance, then, I think you could present that information to the Public Service Commission, and they would determine whether a rate increase was required or not, based on other factors. Not, if you're in significant compliance, this shouldn't apply to you.
Well,
That's up to.
I like it because now in the fourth whereas where you have the many, it doesn't necessarily, and I would agree with both of my other two colleagues, Benny and Randy, it doesn't point the finger at anyone anymore if you go with non-significant.
And if you get out of compliance, or you're not in, if you insignificant, well, I don't know, whatever she said, but if you're not in significant compliance, then we're asking the Public Service Commission to take a look at that before they
Exactly.
grant a rate
And
increase.
that's why I made the comments, like scientifically significant means 95% and highly significant means 99. So if I'm on that board, I'm sitting there thinking, well, they less than 95% involved in this. And I believe the testimony of their legal counsel and their facts and figures and numbers they presented. And therefore, I don't believe this resolution applies to them.
My goal is not to move the resolution where it doesn't apply to anybody. So,
So we have a first and a second here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so now do we have a substitute motion on the changing of the wording from private wastewater treatment to private utility providers?
I'll take it.
Or do we want to do that or not?
We good with it?
Okay. Mr. President.
I think you just really need to stick to sewer because it was a simple, you know, we had a similar situation this year in the legislature where we tried to not us, but Lafayette, someone out in the Lafayette area, Lake Charles area had a resolution or a bill that was, and what happens is, you know, like Mr. Riga, I've been knowing Mr. Riga for a long time. Mr. Riga's probably works for Adams and Reese, probably one of the best lobbyists in Baton Rouge, so I'm giving him a compliment, okay? We faced off with him 3 times on utilities questions, and all 3 times he pretty much killed us in the legislature. So, again, I think if you add all utilities, then you bring in some of the water companies here that also have significant lobbyists who can come. So the next meeting, you're not going to have just the sewer people. You're going to have water people. You may have Gulf States Utilities, or you may Energy and everybody else. So again, the more people you add into this, the more problems you may look into. I mean, I think either you go with the resolution or not go with a resolution and just make it towards sewer, because I mean, that's what you're asking the Public Service Commission to do with your resolution. So if you want to do something later and pass an ordinance with all utilities, but this resolution, I think you're making it way too broad at that point.
That's what I thought.
I make a motion and recall.
Okay, so we're withdrawing the
And
substitute
look for
motion.
it in the future for something like
Yeah,
that.
if we have issues developing around the water treatment or something, other type of utility, we'll deal with that on, and Mr. Dawson?
Yeah, and just real quick, I know it was mentioned about the brown water issues that possibly, I mean, definitely there were some issues initially. I think it was in Councilman Turner's district. That situation had kind of been taken care of because the water provider was changed. And I think a lot of the issues changed. And as far as coming across my desk, any issues with potable water from that standpoint, I have not seen. I have not seen anything come across saying brown water issues across my desk. And we see a lot of things that come across my desk, but that hasn't been the case.
I'm gonna send some across your desk.
All right, any other discussion on the resolution? Mr. Kluot?
Yeah, let's just read it one more time.
Sure.
May I? You go ahead, you get it.
All right, so the resolution as of now reads as corrected this way. Whereas in order to protect the health and safety of the residents, Ascension Parish has initiated an aggressive wastewater treatment program to provide safe and cost-effective sewer treatment. And whereas the parish is responsible for ensuring residents are provided safe and healthy environments, and whereas the ultimate goal of Ascension Parish government is to maintain chemical, physical, and biological integrity of the rivers and streams and to restore local waterways so that our citizens will not be subjected to limited usage of our waterways due to physical and chemical impairment caused by wastewater discharge. And whereas many of the private wastewater treatment providers in the parish have not properly maintained / operated the systems over the years, which result in current noncompliance and unsanitary conditions that directly affect our waterways. And whereas there have been prior instances of the private wastewater treatment providers being granted increased rates, but not the provider, I don't know if we need to reword that, that doesn't read right to me, but not the provider not having reinvested those monies towards improvements toward obtaining compliance. Now, therefore, be it duly resolved by the Ascension Parish Council of the Parish of Ascension that the Ascension Parish Council hereby recommends that the Public Service Commission strongly consider rejecting any request for an increase in the rates by any private wastewater treatment providers operating in the Parish of Ascension that are currently not in significant compliance per Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality. Furthermore, should the Public Service Commission end up granting these rate increases, it is our request that they routinely audit these providers to ensure that these improvements are in fact being completed for the good of our citizens who would be paying the increased rates and for the good of our impacted waterways. So,
Discussion.
real quick, Mr. O'Neill, on that, the new whereas in there, do you have a copy of this?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so,
I have a fix for that if you want it.
sure,
Okay, if we strike the words "not the provider" and substitute "they have," and then strike the word "having," it would then read, whereas there have been prior instances of private wastewater treatment providers being granted increased rates, but they have not reinvested those monies towards improvements toward obtaining compliance.
that sounds, okay. You got that on
Is that
there?
acceptable, Mr. Parish?
Yes.
Does everybody understand that?
So can we get
change
that,
there?
do we need that as an amendment? Can we get that into the motion?
I think we'll have to do it as a substitute, but just to make sure we're dotting all of our i's and crossing all of our t's. And I'm fine with that. If anybody, so you make that in the form of a motion?
If that's okay with Mr. Turner, I guess.
That's substitute, yeah, okay. Do we have a second on that rewording?
I second it.
Seconded by Mr. Turner. Any other discussion?
Just to clarify, this is going to move to the full council.
This is going to be moved to the full council. Not sure if we'll get it on the agenda for the meeting next week, but it may wind up at the Gonzales meeting, the second meeting next month.
The motion is, Mr. Chairman, a recommendation, right?
It's a recommendation, yes, sir. Well, not yet. Hey, we have a recommendation,
Substitute.
we have a substitute, no, I'm sorry. We do have a recommendation for this to go to the full council, and we have a substitute motion making the changes that we made. So we do have that motion in a second, yes. I think I've got it about as clear as mud. Any other discussion?
I'd just like to clear up that fact that anything that comes out of committee is a recommendation to the full council, any committee. Thank you.
All right. There being no further discussion, anybody opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen, for everybody's participation and activity in this resolution. Okay, going back to the agenda, approval of the minutes from June 30th, 2014 meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Sadler, second by Councilman Kluwat. Any discussion? Any objections? Moving on to the next item, update on Highway 7342 projects. Mr. Bob.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. On Highway 73, we're finalizing the sanitary trunk line sewer installations and testing. They've constructed, as everyone's probably aware, the traffic shift lanes outside so that they can start the sub-base road and asphalt base constructions on the south end of that section. On Highway 42, they're in the process of casting the in-place top on lift station 1. They've completed lowering it, and they're completing the pours on the third and second sections on lift stations 2 and 3 respectively, as well as they've begun installing the sanitary sewer piping, the gravity portion from lift station 2 and heading west, and making good progress on that.
Fantastic. Any questions for Mr. Bob on that? Okay, moving on to number 7, the original number 7, discussion of proposed wastewater ordinance, Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, our legal counsel will handle that because it is a legal issue, and we're working with outside counsel on it.
Certainly, Mr.
Let me,
Barrington.
let me kind of give you an update of where we are. The ordinance that we passed in 2008, in 2011, was really someone else's ordinance that was brought before the council and it was approved, but it was really for a parish that had an operating sewer system. It really didn't work for us. We were not an operating sewer system. So we've retained outside counsel and we're working with them. I've met with them. We've kind of laid out what our plans are, and we've worked, and we came up with a draft of an ordinance. I think I met with the parish president and Ken Dawson with them, and we decided at that point in time to put it in the hands of our technical people, the utility department and our engineers, because we have a multifaceted system. We are looking to be into the sewer business with a $60 million loan. We have some systems we operate. We have single home operations. We have trailer parks. We have community sewer systems. So what we're trying to do is develop an ordinance for the future, for when we get into the sewer business, but also to regulate what we have now so that we can prepare to be moved there. So it's taking a little longer than we thought, but because it's multifaceted. So it's going to be something that we'll use in the future for development, but also what regulates what we have now. So we gave it to those people. They've got it back to me this week, and we've provided it to our outside counsel. I sent it to him this week, and we'll set up a meeting in the next week or two to go over it and see what we can do and what we can't do from everybody's input. And then we'll come back to y'all.
O'Neill, if you don't mind, can you send me a meeting request on that? When y'all set that meeting up, if possible, I'd like to attend that, just to kind of be
Sure.
a fly on the wall if possible.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions on that? Thanks, O'Neill. Appreciate it. Just as a general announcement before we move on to item number 10, I started some discussions this week with President Martinez in reference to potentially creating a subcommittee of this committee. One of the things that we're going to have to do here in the near future, and I want to make sure through what we have working already, we're going to have to decide what kind of treatment system we want for the parish. And so we've been kicking around some ideas about what we need to do with it. And so if we need to, we may create a subcommittee to start studying some of that and look into it and work with the administration to come up with a choice for that. So whenever that happens, I will let you gentlemen know about that. Just kind of as an announcement. So item number 10.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Real discussion, real quick.
Sure.
We'll try to get a copy of the revised resolution out to all the council members.
Yes, we'll do
And y'all
that.
can review it first before going.
Real quick before we officially go, Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, let me just give you a quick update on solar, since it is utilities and this, I'm sorry, just forgot about it, but it is moving forward. The panels have been delivered at Lamar Dixon. The process of construction and start doing something should happen within 3 to 4 weeks. The goal is that all of it should be complete by the end of September, 1st of October. The panels around the lake, those are going in too, and it's less of an issue with having net metering and all this kind of stuff with Entergy, so those should be in, and we'll be working very well, so it will provide. And this is at no cost to the parish at all. We're looking at maybe a 10% reduction in our electric bill at Lamar Dixon with this, so it is a $1.5 million system. 300 kilowatts of power, one of the largest of its type thus far in Louisiana.
That's the NRG grant?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Thank you, NRG.
Thanks for everybody that worked on that. We appreciate it. We have a motion second to adjourn. We are adjourned.